Are you aiming for your PMP certification? Well, stick with me as I go over the 5 mistakes that I see people making on their PMP exam prep. The PMP is the gold standard for project managers worldwide. But let's be real, it's a tough exam. It's long, it's tricky, and it's filled with scenario based questions that test your ability to apply concepts, not just memorize them. But here's the thing, many people fail not because they don't know project management, but because they make the common mistakes during preparation. And that's exactly what we're covering today. My 5 most common mistakes that could cost you your PMP when you sit for the exam. Now, if you're anything like me, preparing for a high stake exam can feel a bit overwhelming. I remember when I first started studying, I had a PMBOK guide right here, a few practice tests over there, and I thought I got this. But I really didn't, especially up front. The first practice exam I took, it was a disaster. I was overconfident and I thought memorization of everything I was doing would help me get through it. But then I started getting some of those tricky real world questions, and I realized passing this exam isn't just going to be about my studying. It's about studying the right way, studying the right material in the process. So let's break down the 5 biggest mistakes that I'm seeing people make and how you can sidestep them. First thing I'm seeing is the lack of comprehensive study material. One of the biggest traps the PMP candidates are falling into is relying on just one study resource. Some people swear by the PMBOK guide, others by a specific book or an online course that they took. The truth is, you need to adapt and find what's good enough for you. The PMP exam tests your ability to apply concepts. So you're going to need a diverse amount of study materials to get there. One of the first things I do is I tell people to read or at least review the PMBOK. This guide is exactly that. It's a guide. It sets the stage of what you need to know for the actual exam. But you should always follow that up with a comprehensive and engaging PMP exam prep course. And not just one of those courses that just spit out a ton of information without ever giving you some personal engagement. Something I take pride in delivering during my PMP exam prep courses, where I'll leave a link below if you're looking for a course and what you can expect in 2025. Next, take some mock exams, and not just one. Honestly, I took, whenever I was studying, probably 10, I would say, practice exams. Most of your courses will come with some type of exam, but you're going to want to ensure that you're getting as many questions as you can so you help refine your knowledge. An app that I recently found is the Pocket Prep. This is an app that I've been kind of going through and testing myself out as a PMP instructor on how I'll do. And I've now started recommending it to my students. And again, I'll leave a quick link down in the description as well on where you can find more information out on Pocket Prep. And then last, join some study groups. Hearing different perspectives will help reinforce your knowledge, whether that's studying with a friend or finding a local study group with your local PMI chapter. I recommend trying these out. We learn a lot through conversation and seeing how others dissect the information. Mistake number 2 I see a lot of students do is underestimate their exam format. PMP questions are not straightforward. You're not just going to see, what does this term mean? Instead, you're going to get scenario-based questions where every answer might seem right, but only one is the best answer. Some questions test situational judgment. They'll ask you how to handle conflicts, risk, changes in scope, while others are going to focus on those PM process groups where you need to know whether you're initiating, planning, or executing. I always recommend to my students that you address questions in a very specific way. One way that I'm actually going to show you how to do right now. So let me pull up my other screen. All right, so here we have a question. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to read the questions from the end. Now, this might sound awkward at first, but you got to trust me as we go along. All right? Don't start at the beginning. Start with the end of your question. So for the one we have here, what should you, as the project manager, do first? Now we're shifting up. We're shifting our mind. What are we doing first? So we know that whatever question they're actually asking us, we're going to the step ahead of it before we jump into it. Now let's go and read the actual question. Midway through a project with an approved scope, schedule, and budget. So right now we know we've already established our three key areas: scope, schedule, and budget. So we have our baselines, as they would call it. A key stakeholder submits a change request. All right. So we have our baseline, our scope, schedule, budget, and we have a stakeholder who wants to do a change. They want to change our baselines. So this could significantly alter the project scope and affect both the timeline and the cost. So what should you, as the project manager, do first? All right, so now we are reacting to this change request coming in. What are we doing? Now, you might, because you've been studying for a second, or maybe you are a PMP already, you're going to look at this and go, hey, I know what the answer is. That's great. But as a student, I want you to go through each answer. I want you to answer each one on either why it is or is not the right answer. So we're going to look at answer A. Immediately incorporate the change request into the project plan to satisfy the stakeholder. All right, so we're looking at this and we're immediately jumping into something the PMP exam is going to test you on. But I can tell you right now, you never just want to jump at anything. As the PM, we think through the processes. And this is one area where we're going to think through it. So I think A might not be the best answer. Initiate a formal change control process to evaluate the impact of the change request before implementation. Okay, so we have a change. We're not reacting right away. Instead, we're going to initiate our change control process. Something that we're setting up in our project management plan is how we're going to do change control. So it sounds like here we're going through that process of what we plan to do. C, reject the change request outright to preserve the original project plan. Well, as the PM, you're not rejecting anything. It's going to be probably your sponsors or going through that change control process. And then whoever's on the other side of that, they're going to be the ones rejecting. So you're not rejecting anything at any time in your project, especially on the exam. And D, discuss the change informally with the team and decide without following a formal process. Well, again, in your project management plan, we're going to set a change control process. So we're not just going to skip that process and talk it out amongst ourselves. Odds are you're probably going to get whoever's citing for this change control to push for their answer. So easily we can see that B is the right answer. Took a little longer than you probably would on your exam. But when you think through each question, it's going to help you out because, again, those questions are tricky. So in order to do your exact prep, you're going to want to go through and do this for every question you do while studying because you want to make sure you don't just know the right answer, but you know why it's the right answer. And you know why the other answers are wrong. All right. So now we're at mistake number 3, not using time management strategies. Look, imagine this. You're 90 minutes into the exam and you've only answered 50 questions. Panic sets in. You start rushing. You start second guessing yourself. And before you know it, time's up. The PMP exam is a marathon. It's not a sprint. You have 180 questions that you have to answer in 230 minutes. That's roughly 1.2 minutes per question. So, first thing you want to do is you need to pace yourself. So, when you're doing your practice, practice under the pressure of time. Set your clocks to count down versus count up, because that's something I learned on the exam is that the clock they have starts at 2:30 and heads down. It doesn't start at 0 and go up to 2:30. This will help you when you finish your first and second rounds and go into your break. You should have a goal when you're finishing your first 60 questions on where you're going to be. So when you get to 60, you should have roughly 156 minutes left on the exam. And when you get to your second break, you should have roughly 77 minutes left. Next, make sure you're marking your tricky questions. So when you go through the exam, you're going to do 60 question blocks. 60, 120, 180. In those each blocks, don't waste your time overthinking a question. Mark it and return later. You have that option to set a little flag and come back to it later. So if you're getting tricked, just mark and move on. Get through what you know, analyze your time, and focus on the ones you need to spend your time with. And then also make sure you're taking full length practice exams. Help yourself out here. Don't focus on just 10 question quizzes or taking 60 questions and taking a large break. Just like when you train for a marathon or a race, you want to run a specific distance in order to build up your stamina to get through the rest of the race. The same thing applies when you're studying for the exam. I truly believe you should take at least one full exam based on the time scale that you'll see during the actual test. Trust me, this will help you out with recognizing how much time you have left and the patience you need to sit there for 230 minutes while staring at a computer answering questions. Next, let's get into mistake number 4, neglecting the project management processes. Too many test takers focus on memorizing the formulas because they're tricky and they don't know how to apply them. The PMP exam loves to test how the project management processes interact with each other, not just ask you direct questions. For example, if a project is behind schedule, do you crash the schedule or request a change? If the stakeholder is unhappy, do you update your risk register or adjust your communication plan? How you answer these will be based on where you are in the process and then other parts that you'll see in your questions, which means you need to think like a project manager, not a textbook reader. Yes, the exam is based on the PMBOK and the other PM resources listed in the exam content outline, but they are testing that you as the PM can handle whatever the project throws your way. And our last mistake is ignoring the importance of a strong foundation. Some people jump into PMP exam prep without a solid project management experience, thinking they can wing it with just enough studying or they can make up some information on their application. I truly am going to tell you right now, don't lie on your application in order to take the PMP. And if you're struggling with the basics of what the PMP is, consider taking an entry-level project management course like the CAPM and make sure that you're getting hands-on experience managing tasks, timelines, budgets, all within your work as a PM now. That sums up my 5 biggest mistakes people make on the exam. So let's quickly go over them again. 1, they're relying on one study resource, not using a mix of books, courses, and practice exams. They're underestimating the exam format. Make sure that you're training yourself with those scenario-based questions. Then there's poor time management. Make sure you're pacing yourself and practicing with full-length mock exams. Neglecting the project management process? No, you need to understand how they all interconnect. And then jumping in without a strong foundation. Make sure you start with the basics if needed. This is an advanced exam, and you want to make sure that you at least have the background associated to earn it and then apply it once you're done. By avoiding these mistakes, you're going to boost your confidence, improve your exam performance, and get one step closer to having PMP behind your name. If you found this helpful, do me a favor, hit that follow button and subscribe to 44 Risk PM for more PMP tips in the future. Also, do me a favor and drop a comment below. What's the biggest challenge you have with PMP or RMP, ACP, any type of PMI exams? Let's talk about it. I'll see you in the next video and good luck on your PMP journey. 44 Risk PM out.